This is the, thank you, Jack. This is now round 26 of Scottish Edge, and this is the application workshop. This workshop has been created and developed over 12 years, I would say, um, and it's been based on feedback and the Q&A that we get from the candidates. And this is about helping you be the best you can be at your application. So we are a competition. We are a funding competition, which means you have to compete. But we'll do everything we possibly can to get you in the best place possible to submit, a cracking application, to get you all the information you need to tell you what the judges are looking for in your application, what they're looking for in your video, and then it's up to you to fashion that to get in front of the judges to get through each stage. So we're here for you today. Now, the flow of this is going to be that we will do I'll do the content. So I'll go through the content and I'll explain everything that we need to explain. And we've got a guest speaker today, Stacey Archibald, who's joining us from Zero Waste Scotland. So Zero Waste Scotland, I've got a few slides in the deck to explain about the circular economy. So that's part of our application process. And Stacey's an expert. She's going to give us a bit more about how do you understand, what do we mean by, forgive me, what do you mean by a circular economy business model? Okay, and how do you fashion that into your application? So Stacey will give you a little bit of information on that. And then at the end of all the slides, which I'm hoping should answer at least 90 to 95% of all your questions, we'll take open questions. So we'll open up the mics and we can have a quick session on, just ask me anything that I haven't covered. During the session, if I cover a topic and you still have a question, feel free to pop a question in the chat. Okay, Jack will pick them up as he goes, and if there's any we can't answer, we'll pick them up at the end as a group, and we can answer your questions from there. So Utopia is you'll leave today crystal clear on what you have to do. You'll get online, you'll get your application done, you'll get it submitted. Okay, that's what we're aiming for. So let's get cracking. First of all, introductions. I'm Kevin, Chief Operating Officer at Edge, and my role predominantly is running the competition process. So one of these days, where I, sit with potential candidates and take them through the whole process and explain how it works. There's no sorcery here. There's no hidden agendas. We will take you through this step by step to help you be the best you can be. Jack is joining us from Scottish Edge. Jack is our marketing manager and the whiz who does the baby AI videos. So if you saw the launch video with the baby AI, which my stepkids are still having nightmares over. So Jack is a genius behind the baby AI videos as well. So Jack is going to handle the Q&A and handle any kind of technical issues in the background. And as I said, we've got Stacey here, and Stacey's camera's off at the moment, but Stacey is here, and Stacey will be joining us from Zero Waste Scotland. Okay, so let's get cracking. A lot to get through. I'm just going to minimize that box. Oops, forgive me. Okay. So what we're going to cover today, I'm going to talk to you about what Scottish Edge is. If you haven't done any research yet, if you've never been through a Scottish Edge application before, I'm going to explain what we do and why we exist. I will talk to you about the categories and the eligibility in each category. So if you've been into the portal or if you've done some research already, you might want to know about the different categories and who is eligible to apply. Talk to you about the key dates in the journey. We'll talk to you about how to apply. So how physically do you go about doing this process if you haven't started? We'll talk to you about how the assessment process works. So there's no hidden agenda here. We'll explain exactly what the judges are looking for, and we'll give you all the information you need to try and make a great application. We'll share lots and lots of top tips that we have kind of picked up over the years and has been fed back to us from applicants and winners also. And then we'll do an open Q&A at the end as well. So, Scottish Edge, who are we? We are a social enterprise. First and foremost, we're a not-for-profit organisation. We were established back in 2012, and it was initially a project built in Scottish enterprise. At the time, back then, there was a clear gap in the market for, grant funding for early-stage businesses who were too early for investors and too high risk for banks. So a fund was set up, Scottish Edge was created within Scottish Enterprise to get £50,000 grants out to early stage companies and measure the impact. It was massively oversubscribed for a few rounds, and then it was spun out into Scottish Edge CIC. So the community interest company was developed. Evelyn McDonald came on board as CEO and looked at the model, and first of all said, we can't just be a grant-only model. We have to build in some kind of future resilience. So that some of the awards are loan grant mix, which I will talk to you about as we go through. That just tries to build resilience within our loan fund so we can rotate that loan fund out to new winners, which builds sustainability for Scottish Edge. And it's one of the backbones of why we've been able to grow and thrive over the last 12 years. So we are a funding competition, as I've said, but we'll help you be the best you can be. And we're looking for, up and coming, innovative, high growth entrepreneurial talent. We're looking for innovation. We're looking for new ideas. We're looking for strong teams. And we'll put you guys in front of judges and they will select who gets the funding in this round. So why would you apply to Scottish Edge? We are open to all sectors. So we are sector agnostic. It doesn't matter if you're a chocolate factory or if you're building a space rocket. We've funded both. So we're open to everyone. It doesn't matter your geography, but it is a Scottish-based business. That's what we're looking for, Scottish-based entrepreneurs, Scottish-based businesses, and I'll talk to you about that a little bit more in the eligibility. So why would you apply to Edge? Also, you get feedback at every stage of the competition. Okay, every stage of the process, you'll get detailed feedback from your panel of judges. So you'll get constructive feedback, and they'll give you some comments on what they like about your proposal, what you could strengthen, and that's whether you're successful or not at each stage. You always get feedback as you go. A lot of applicants tell me that even if they don't win, going on the journey helps them learn so much about their business. Because your application will go in front of business experts who don't know you from Adam. They'll look at your application and they'll read it objectively, and they'll give you commentary on that, and they'll give you what they can see and what they like and what they think you should strengthen. So a lot of people tell us that it's a journey to go on and how much they learn going on a process. So even if you submit an application and you're not successful at first stage, don't be disheartened, because I guarantee you'll learn a lot. And it's really tough to secure a Scottish Edge Award, but what you'll learn on the way is going to be invaluable for the whole journey of your business. We've got a whole support network. So we give you support during the application stage. We give you support during the semi-final and pitching days if you get to that stage as well. And then there's wraparound support from our relationship managers after you win also. And Scottish Edge has got a big, big network for our winners to plug into. So there's lots to like about getting into Edge, getting involved, whether you win or not. We definitely recommend that, even if you come in for the first time and you're not successful, come back. We are flexible funders. So what we mean by that is we do our money out in tranches. And when it comes to the loan elements, we can work with businesses. Business plans are great on paper, but really from the minute you submit your application, the chances are it's going to be slightly out of date by the time the judges look at it. And even more out of date by the time you win. So when you win, if you secure a loan element of one of your awards, then we can discuss loan affordability at that point with each individual funder, each individual winner, based on the situation the business is in. We're really flexible. We're not a bank. We have a lending element, but we're a business support mechanism that has a lending element. Okay, so think of it as that way. We're not a bank. We want this money to go into businesses, to grow them, to scale them, to recruit people, to kind of build well-paid jobs in Scotland. We have been heavily backed from the start by Royal Bank of Scotland, Hunter Foundation, Scottish Government, and Scottish Enterprise. So they've been beside us the whole way through, and they are our main backers, funders, and sponsors. So what have we done so far in these last 12 years or so? We have reviewed over 5,800 applications. We've got over 700 alumni winners in our portfolio. We have awarded over £29 million in funding, and we support businesses all over Scotland. Everything from a sauna business up in Orkney, to Shetland, down to with an insulation business down in the Borders. So and the islands, everywhere around. So we'll support businesses across the whole of Scotland. So competition categories. So you may have looked at the application process and you may be thinking, right, where do I sit? Where does my business sit and which category should I apply for? First of all, you need to be thinking about how much money do you need? At this stage of your proposal, how much money do you need to move this proposition forward. And this information here will help you decide, okay, how much do you actually need, not what you want. You know, you might want 100K, but in actual fact, what does the business need to get it forward to the next stage? So have a think about that. But if you're thinking about where do you sit, if you need 100K or one of the top awards, it's the Scottish Edge category. It's the main category you're applying for. And it has to be a registered business entity. So it's got to be a limited company, a social enterprise, a KIC, or a charity. And the reason why it has to be a registered entity of some kind is that in the Scottish Edge category, as you can see, you can secure up to 100,000 in funding. There's one unique prize of 150, but I'll talk about that soon. And that's a 30% grant and 70% loan split. Now, the reason why it has to be a business entity like a limited company is the loan element sits in the limited company. So a sole trader cannot apply to Scottish Edge. Okay? Because it's a limited company or it's a business entity of some kind that takes ownership and is assigned the loan should you win the main Scottish Edge category. In the social edge category, if you're a social enterprise, it must be an asset-locked social enterprise. So it's a not-for-profit organisation. In social enterprise edge, they can apply for up to £75,000 in funding. And if you notice in bold there, the loan grant split is flipped. It's a 70% grant, 30% loan. And that's backed by our funders and sponsors to relieve the debt pressure on the social enterprise. Because sometimes social enterprises can find it harder and longer to get to profitability. So that's a unique award where the loan grant element is flipped around to take a bit of debt pressure off the social enterprise. If you're considering entering the young edge category, the founder or founders must be aged 30 or younger at the time of applying. Again, must be a registered entity of some kind, but can also be a sole trader or partnership. Okay, so sole trader or partnerships and limited companies can apply to Young Edge. Okay, and that's up to a £15,000 grant. Most of the grants are 10K, but there's a couple of special 10K, 15K top awards. So if you're applying for young, 30 years or younger at the time of applying, can be a business entity, but can also be a sole trader because there's only a grant element in that award. So there's no loan to attribute to an entity, so you can be a sole trader. Similar for Wildcard, excuse me, Wildcard award, but that's for pre-trading ideas. That's very, very early stage. You know, it's an idea on a piece of paper. You need to do some customer discovery. You need to do some MVP building. Pre-trading businesses, very, very early stage. Again, similar to Young, can be a limited company or a social enterprise, but can also be a sole trader because that is a grant-only award also. So up to 15K, there's one top award for the wildcard, and that's a 15K grant. So that's the four categories, and this is the slide where we probably get asked the most questions. There's lots of support you can get on choosing which category, which one is right for you, and I'll cover that very, very shortly. So your competition journey. So the first thing you'll do is you'll select the category you want to apply to. So as we just talked about, how much cash do you need at this stage and which category is best for you at this stage. So you go into the portal, you'll select a category, and I'll talk to you about what that looks like in a second. When you select your category, you'll submit your application and your 3-minute video. Everyone has to do this. Everyone will then go through a first stage assessment process where all applications are assessed by panels of judges. And for context, last round we had 247 applications, and every single application gets assessed individually and fairly. And every single application gets feedback. At the first stage assessment, if you are successful, wrong button, and you've applied to the main edge category, so you have applied for 100K or one of the top awards. If you're successful at first stage, you will then go to a semi-final. And that semi-final will be a 3-minute pitch and a 30-minute Q&A on a Zoom call. So you'll join a Zoom meeting at a specific date and time, and you'll have 4 judges on the Zoom meeting, and you will pitch for 3 minutes. The judges will ask you questions for 13 minutes, and then you'll leave the room. And then the judges will see approximately 11 businesses over the course of that semi-final, And at the end of that day, they will choose their winners to go through to the live final. On average, you'll probably find from the 11 semi-finalists, there'll probably be in the region of, let me think now, mental maths here, 5 to 6 normally go through to the final stage. But that depends on the judges' decisions. If you're successful going to the live final, so you get through semi-final, you're successful there, and you get to the live final, you will be asked to come to RBS Goulburn, and I'll give you the dates for this in a second. Come to RBS Goulburn and get up on stage and pitch for 3 minutes with a 10-minute Q&A from judges who are sat right in front of you. This is a live event and it's a public event. The semi-final is a closed environment. It's just you and the judges and the Edge team. The live final is a public environment, so you're pitching in front of the judges, in front of an audience. And if you're successful at that, obviously, you go on to secure your Scottish Edge Award. If you're coming in and you're applying to one of the other categories, so Social Enterprise Edge, Young or Wild, it's a slightly different route. So if you're successful at first stage, you'll go straight to one of these finals, a Social Edge final, a Young Edge final, or a Wildcard final. Now, the Young and the Wild finals are similar to the semi-final in as much as they're on Zoom. It's a 3-minute pitch. It's 10 minutes of Q&A in front of 4 judges, and that is a closed environment. And at the end of that final day, the judges will decide who gets funding. And you'll find out really quickly after that if you've been successful in securing funding. So that applies to the Young and the Wild. That is online, in a Zoom room, closed environment, pitching for 3 minutes, 10 minutes Q&A, 4 judges, and the Edge team. And you'll find out very quickly if you've got some funding. If you're applying to the Social Enterprise Edge category and you get through first stage, you'll then go straight to a live final. So that is, you'll be invited to Edinburgh to an office to pitch to 4 judges who will ask you questions in a live environment. 3 minutes of pitching, 10 minutes of Q&A. It's a closed environment, so there's no public attendance at the Social Enterprise Edge final, but it is a live final. So you're standing in front of 4 judges, you're pitching, they will ask you questions, and after they've seen all the finalists for the Social Edge, they will choose their one winner, and that winner can secure up to £75,000 of funding at the Social Edge. Okay, we also have some special category awards. The special category awards are an accolade that goes to our winners. Now, this doesn't come with additional funding. Okay, these are given to businesses who have received an Edge award in the main Edge category. So you may have received 100,000 in funding, and you may well also receive the accolade of these special category awards. And I'm going to explain what they are. One of the most important one is the new Scottish Enterprise Future Edge Award. Future Edge will go to one business who is demonstrating a very credible, scalable, innovative main Edge category winner who is aligned with future industries in Scotland. So the future industries for Scotland is listed on the Scottish Enterprise website. It's a whole array of industries, but it covers things like AI, it covers energy transition and acceleration towards that. And it covers a myriad of different space is included in there as well. So those are the kind of top 3 that a future Edge winner would receive. Now that is a unique award because you can receive up to £150,000 in funding. There's only one award of 150. And if the Scottish Enterprise team choose one of the winners to be, that top 150 award, that's how much total funding you would receive. So it's a big award. Bear in mind, if you're applying for 150,000, it is a 30% grant and a 70% loan. So you have to bear in mind that you might think 150 is a great amount of cash for your business, but it does come with 70% loan funding. So how are you going to service that loan? So bear that in mind. Bear that in mind with all the main Edge awards. They do have loans attached. Can your business finance or fund these loans? So you've got the Scottish Enterprise Category Award of the Future Edge. Royal Bank of Scotland have got a Scale Edge Award. So they're putting in up to 100k in funding. So that's your Edge funding. You get 100k, and one business will be chosen that fits Royal Bank of Scotland's vision for scaling businesses. And there's some wraparound support from the Royal Bank of Scotland for that also. If you're a product-based business and you are deemed to be a winner for this STV Growth Edge Award, on top of your Edge Award, which could be up to 75k, you could also get an additional £75,000 worth of ad spend on STV. Now, what that involves is you would work with the STV team, they would help create an advert for you, and they would showcase your advert on STV and across their online platforms as well. So that's an additional award on top of your Scottish Edge Award, where STV would work with you to create an ad and showcase your product. So that goes to one winner also. We have a Creative UK, Creative Edge Award sponsored by Creative UK. And again, that's a special award for creative sector businesses. Creative Edge, the Creative UK team will help decide from the winners which one fits the profile of, a Creative Edge award. And again, that's 100,000 in funding, 30% grant and 70% loan. So you secure your main Edge award of 100k, then you get the accolade of the Creative Edge award on top of that. But it is only one pot of funding. It's not 2 times 100k. You get your 100k and your accolade of the Creative Edge. So one winner will get that. And as we'll hear very soon from Stacey, there's a Circular Economy Edge. So Zero Waste Scotland have been a huge supporter of us for many, many years, and they continue to help us find and fund great businesses that have got a really strong circular business model focus. 100,000 in funding for that top award, 30% grant and 70% loan. And then finally, we've got the Pathways Edge Awards. So Scottish Government will help us choose a special award for the best application and winner in the main Edge category with a female-founded business. Okay, so that's about supporting female-founded entrepreneurs and winners up to 100k also. So the category awards are the accolade that sits on top of your monetary award from Edge, and these are decided by our sponsors. Okay, timely done. I'm now going to ask Stacey to step in. Stacey Archibald is here from Zero Waste Scotland to tell you a little bit more around the Circular Economy Edge. Stacey, I'm going to hand over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Good morning, everyone. And as Kevin said, I'm Stacey. I'm a partner within the business engagement team at Zero Waste Scotland, and we sponsor Circular Edge Award for a number of years. We absolutely love seeing the applications that we receive because we do get to see so much innovation and new approaches to doing business, and that is just fantastic to kind of be able to support that with Scottish Edge. So Kevin, if we move on to the next slide. Thank you. So I'm going to take you through a very brief presentation just to share a bit about what the circular economy is, what it looks like within a business, and I'll give some hints and tips on how to fill out the circular economy question in the Edge application form. So I'll briefly cover what we mean by a circular economy, discuss the various principles and strategies that are commonly adopted by businesses. When we talk about the circular economy, we're talking about a shift in perspective as to how we think about products and materials with the aim of minimising waste and keeping products and materials in use for as long as possible. So in our current linear system, we often see a take, make and waste model, but to future-proof this in our economy and in the future of business, we know that we need to innovate and to move away from this linear way of thinking. And that means making a fundamental shift in the way that we design products and services. So the circular economy provides a new way of thinking about this and a solution. The circular economy, as we see in this slide, we eliminate the concept of waste and take a regenerative approach to prioritising resource efficiency. So the circular economy is based on 3 principles that are on the screen. That's designing out waste and pollution, keeping products and materials in use for as long as possible, and regenerating natural systems. So if we move on to the next slide, I'll just talk through. So at Zero Waste Scotland, we have identified 9 circular strategies or models that are commonly adopted by businesses. And that's a way of conducting business in a circular manner. And some of them are somewhat obvious, but others require a slight shift in the way that we're talking about products and services, and sometimes the way that we're collaborating together with our supply chains. The first model on the screen is circular design, and it focuses on taking a circular mindset from the very beginning and at the core of a sort of business design. And it's asking questions like, is the product easily repaired? Can it be constructed in a modular way that helps make it easier to replace parts or to add future modifications? And can the materials be easily recycled at the end of the product's useful life? So another one that we commonly see is resource recovery. And that's where a business is taking its own or someone else's waste or byproduct and turning it into something else. So an example might be turning brewery waste into a cracker, which is something that we've seen done by two of our businesses working in collaboration. In terms of enabling technologies, is one we're seeing more and more, and it relates to new tools and systems that aid the transition of the circular economy. So examples might be advanced robotics, which aid recycling, RFID tagging, which allows tracking of reusables, or sharing platforms that enable the circulation of surplus products and waste. Products as a service and leasing are two very similar approaches that require us to think differently about ownership. So within these models, the businesses retain ownership of the product and instead sell the service of the product to an individual or allow them to lease it for a specific time period. For example, hiring a kilt for a wedding or renting an appliance such as a carpet cleaner car. Remanufacturing is where we dismantle and refurbish a product, remaking them to match or exceed the quality of the original, extending the useful life of a product. Reuse is where we use the product for as long as possible in their original form. For example, a reusable cup scheme, second-hand market, or embedding returnable packaging. And moving on to our final few. So repair is where we simply extend the life of the product by maintaining or fixing, however clearly relates back to product design and whether the product is repairable. And our final strategy is the sharing economy. So an example of this is tool libraries where products can be easily accessed and cheaply by multiple users, or peer-to-peer sharing across the community. So this is all sort of in theory, and it's examples of strategies that we see commonly adopted by businesses. But I think the best way to really understand them is to take a look at some of the kind of past winners of Scottish Edge, and we've got some really great examples. So I'd encourage you to take a look at both the Zero Waste Scotland website and the Edge website, and just have a look at some of those businesses. It's really inspiring, I think, to see that innovation. And just a few kind of past winners that, you know, we've got case studies on that you could take a look at: Potter Pots, Evolve Metals, Indie Nature, and Ailsa Reliability Solutions, all previous winners of Scottish Edge. And good examples of the circular economy. So, Kevin, if I could ask you to move on to the final slide. I can see lots of questions coming in, and I was going to say I'll come to them at the end. At the end of this presentation, I'll be hanging around, so I can see them all popping in, but I've not managed to read them. So, just moving on to the final slide. So, I'd really encourage you to have a think about your business down the lens of the circular economy, and ask yourself if you're already adopting some of these principles, because it's amazing how many businesses adopt circular economy principles without realising. So we'd love to hear about what you think about them and how you're adopting these principles within your business. And that can be within your business on your own, or it could be in collaboration with other businesses or within your supply chains. So on the hints and tips for applying to this award, these are the kind of questions that we're asking ourselves when we're assessing your application. So one might be, can you provide detail on your existing or proposed circular practice? Which of the 9 circular models does it relate to? And how will it function on a practical level? Another question might be, how have you embedded or intend to embed the solution into your business to ensure its success? For example, customer communication built into policies, embedding it in supply chains. We would also ask ourselves, what are the realised or anticipated savings associated with this approach? For example, we don't just look at cost saving, but we would consider carbon saving, waste or packaging savings, water or energy savings. And these don't need to be exact, just estimates are fine. And we don't expect a full carbon impact assessment. Just focus on the alternative metrics, such as waste, if you're not sure about conversion factors. And have you received any external support and created any partnerships to make this solution become reality? Have you secured a solution from like-minded businesses to help you develop this idea? Have you received support from advice agencies like Zero Waste Scotland or environmental consultants? And finally, how long has this solution been embedded into your business? If it's not yet operational, what are your anticipated timeframes? So that's just kind of a brief overview of what we're looking at while we assess the circular award. So just before I finish up, I'd just like to encourage you to take a look at our website, take a look at the case studies and examples of businesses that have won Circular Edge before, because there's some really inspiring examples. And as I said, I will be here until the end of this webinar, so if you have any questions, just let me know. And I'd just like to wish you the best of luck with your application to Edge. And with that, I'll pass back over to Kevin.
Stacey, thank you very much. A great explanation of the circular economy and what we're looking for. As Stacey said, she's going to hang around to the end of the webinar. Jack will pick up as many questions as possible in the chat. And if there's anything that Jack can't answer, I'm sure we can ask Stacey to come back to us with a little bit more detail. But thank you, Stacey, for now. That's brilliant. Thank you for that. Okay, I'm now going to move on. We're still looking at the competition and eligibility. So these bullet points here must apply to all applicants. Well, it doesn't matter if it's Scottish Edge, if it's Wildcard, Young or Social. These are the baseline eligibility. So the business must be, if it pre-trading or if it is trading, been trading for less than 5 years. Now, trading and pre-trading always seems to get some people a little bit confused. Registering a business in Companies House doesn't make you a trading business. If you're registered in Companies House and you start generating revenue from customers, that makes you a trading business. So think about your business at the moment. Is it trading? Is it pre-trading? Because you'll have to select that in your application form, and it affects how the application form flows. Okay, so trading or pre-trading, if you are trading, you have to be, generating revenue for less than 5 years. If there's any grey areas or anyone's unsure, you can always contact the team. I'll give you details at the end. You can contact the team as well. Winners of Scottish Edge must be headquartered in Scotland and the founder resident in Scotland. Now, when we say headquartered in Scotland, you may well not have a business entity at the moment, but you're just about setting one up. But winning of any of the awards, it's all about growing businesses here in Scotland. So the headquarters can be here, but you can be selling everything to the US. We have funded businesses that have built headquarters here and they sell all around the world, and they actually don't sell anything in Scotland. That's okay. Scottish Edge exists to fund businesses who can build businesses, generate sales that will contribute to the economy and create well-paid jobs based in Scotland. That's why we exist. Okay. Now you can have a headquartered business in Scotland, and you can employ contractors who are based in England, who are based across Europe. That's fine. You can do that. But fundamentally, the business is headquartered here. The main roles are here, and the job creation predominantly will be in Scotland. So the revenue flows back into Scotland. You pay taxes on that revenue. It all goes back into the economy. Okay. If you are a trading business, your current turnover, annual turnover should be less than £1 million a year. So if you're trading at the moment, you're turning over £1 million a year, you're sadly not eligible for Scottish Edge in any of the categories. If you're fortunate enough to raise external investment, and what I mean by external investment, if you've got investment in from investors, they've bought shares in your company or anything like that. But that doesn't include grant funding. So if you've had some grant funding from elsewhere, that's not included in the investment. This is about equity investment. So you may have had, 150, 250 equity investment, but if you've had more than 500, you're not eligible for any of the Scottish Edge categories, I'm afraid. We also ask that 50% of the business ownership is attributed to the directors working in the business on a day-to-day basis. Simple reason for that. When anyone wins a Scottish Edge award, they work with their relationship managers. So they want to help and support the business leaders and the decision makers in our winners. So that's why, if you're over a 50% ownership of your company, you're effectively the decision maker. We want to work with the decision makers. We want to work with the directors who are driving the strategy forward, and we want to help wrap around that support to make that happen. All applicants must have ambitions to raise or generate 200,000 in turnover 3 years after their award. Now, slight caveat to that. You could be a Young Edge winner who's securing 10,000. You could be a Scottish Edge winner who's securing 100K. We still like you to have the ambitions to get to that number. So we want you to get as close to that number if you can, but we need some credible assumptions around it. Okay, and we know that not everyone is going to hit that number, but we need to see ambition that you want to take this money and it wants to get you to a place in 3 years after your award. Now, the caveat comes if you are a medtech business. So you could be a pharmaceutical company who is 7 to 10 years from revenue. We have funded businesses like that. We have been part of the funding mix that supported businesses who are in that sphere. So you may look at Scottish Edge and say, I can't generate 200K in sales in the next 3 years because I'm going to be 5, 6, 7 years from revenue. That's okay. By exception, we can look at high growth, high potential innovation that may be 4, 5, 6, 7 years away from revenue. As long as the applicant can explain how they're going to fund the loan, how they're going to service that loan, what is their plans to pay for that loan. Okay, so that is a caveat to that rule around the 200K over 3 years. All other applicants, we ask you to aspire to that and put in great assumptions around how you're going to achieve that. Key dates. This is a timeline for the key dates. Everything I'm telling you today is on our website. Just about everything. We've learned some additional stuff, but the majority of everything I'm telling you is on our website or on our competition brochure, which we'll talk to you about in a second. These are all the key dates. The number one key date you should be thinking about at the moment, if you're on this call today or you're watching this recording, you're obviously considering applying. The closing date for applications is the 10th of September at 2 p.m. sharp. 2 p.m. sharp means 2 p.m. sharp. No applications will be accepted after that time. And there's a very specific reason, because I then have to process 250 applications in a timely manner to get them ready for first stage assessments. Okay, that's a lot of work for our processes and our team to handle. So 2 p.m., no exceptions. We are now at 27th of August. So if you want to apply and you haven't looked at the portal yet, I would say clear your diary today and have a look at the portal and get your head around what's involved in submitting an application. It can be a quite lengthy process, depending on how much information you've got to hand, but I'll talk to you about that process in a second and what that journey looks like. But 10th of September, 2 o'clock, if you haven't hit submit, your application will not be accepted. By the 1st of October, you will hear if you've been successful at the first stage assessments. So you'll get an email and it will give you a result. If you're successful, it will tell you, what the next stage for you, if it's a Young Edge final place, a wildcard final place, social edge final place, or a semi-final place. All that information will be in the email, and everyone will get their feedback at that point. Whether you're successful or not, you'll get an email on the 1st of October that'll explain the result and explain your feedback. If you're successful at first stage and you're applying to the Scottish Edge category, you'll be selected for one of these dates for a semi-final. So we normally take 55 businesses through to 5 semi-final dates. 11 businesses will pitch in each date, and you'll be offered a slot in one of these dates. Sadly, the dates are non-negotiable because as you can imagine, it is such a tight window. We'd ask you just to be mindful of the fact that if you're coming into the competition and you're assuming you're getting through each stage of the process, have a look at these dates in advance in your calendar. If you've got holidays coming up, is there something that's going to prevent you potentially from, pitching if you get through that stage? Think ahead to these dates. That's why we publish them well in advance, so you can plan in advance for yourself and for your own diaries. By exception, we may be able to move a slot, but it will be by exception. So please bear that in mind. If you're offered a slot and a time slot, please, if you can, try and fill that slot, because trying to move everything around is a logistical nightmare. So the semi-finals for the Scottish Edge category, as you can see, at the end of October, we've got 2 Young Edge final days. So if you're applying for Young Edge and you're successful at first stage, you'll be invited to one of the Young Edge final days on Zoom where you'll pitch. There's 2 final days, and there'll be approximately 10, 11 finalists on each day of that Young Edge of those two Young Edge finals. And each panel of judges will select winners on their individual days. On the 13th of November, if you're applying for a wildcard and you get through first stage, you'll be invited to the final on the 13th of November. Again, online, pitching to a room of 4 judges. If you're applying for the the Social Enterprise Edge final, that is on the 19th of November, and that's an in-person final in Edinburgh. If you're applying for Scottish Edge, you get through first stage, you get through semi-final stage, you'll be invited to the live public event at ABS Goulburn on the 27th of November. Now, it says 2 in one day because we've got 2 pitching rooms. We've got one pitching room runs in the auditorium where 10 to 12 businesses will pitch across the day, and we've got a specially created double room upstairs where a second final will take place, and we'll have 10 to 12 businesses pitching in there to a different panel of judges. So we've effectively got 2 final going on at one time, one in the auditorium with 4 judges with a public audience, one upstairs, 4 different judges and a public audience as well. And it's a very lively kind of fluid day. So just be aware of that. 27th of November, if you're applying for the Scottish Edge category and the main category, if you're successful, that would be the date you would come to Edinburgh and pitch live to the judges in front of an audience. And then you will hear the next day, you should hear on the 28th of November if you've been successful at those finals. And all winners will be invited to the award ceremony on the 4th of December to collect an award. We do lots of PR around the awards, we take photographs, and we showcase all our winners through our press channels at that point. So key dates, everything is on our website. Often we get asked, okay, Scottish Edge is a funding competition, it's a tough competition, what's the chances of me winning? This is a rough guide estimate, okay? Rough guide estimate of, and I'm spotting a typo already in my numbers. These are a rough guide estimate based on round 25's applications. So we had 247 applications in round 25. And from that, we had over 100, I'm sure it was 122 applications, not 22, over 122 applications for Scottish Edge category. And we had 13 winners. So the ratio worked in about 11%. That was about the ratio of securing a Scottish Edge award, and apologies for the typo. From the Young Edge category for last round, we had 32 applicants, and there was 12 winners. So that's 26% chance of securing an award. Wildcard, we had 9 winners. That was 11%. So we had about, I think it was just about 80 applicants for that. And from the Social Edge category, I think we had 6 finalists. We had 11 applicants. So it was about a 9% chance of securing a Social Edge award. This is just a guide, okay? This all comes down to the quality of application. It comes down to what the judges want to fund, but it does, as a finite amount of pot we have to give out, it's 1.5 million in funding across all categories. So there's a finite amount of winners that judges can award, but this is just giving you a rough guide and to highlight it is a competitive process. So prepare to compete, do your best with your application, your video. You want to stand out to the judges. So where do you start? If you haven't been here already, this is the front page of our website. So you go on and you literally click apply here. It'll take you into the portal. There's a link there for the application workshop registration, which you guys have already done. And there's everything we're talking about today is in here. Now, as you can see in the bottom right-hand side of my screen, which I'm going to talk about a bit more, we have developed a conversational AI chatbot to help applicants ask questions. Edward is his name. Edward, we have designed our character, and it is a conversational chatbot. It's not a type chatbot. So when it says on there, start a call, when you go into the website and you press that, you'll hear Edward's voice, and he'll introduce himself, and he'll ask you to give your name and then state your question. How can he help? And you'll have a conversation with our AI chatbot, and you can ask him anything about the competition process. We have been up and running for a couple of weeks now, and it's been really successful. He's still learning, so he might not know everything. So if there's any if there's any information you're given you want to double check or you want to speak to a member of the team, please feel free. You can message info@scottishedge.com, or there's my email address as well and Jack's email address, which is at the start of the slides, which I'll bring up at the end. But the first point of contact is Edward. You can ask him anything quickly online. Then you can contact the info@scottishedge.com mailbox as well. I'll talk a little bit more about Edward in a second. When you click the apply here, it'll ask you to register for the portal. That's where all our information gets stored. So our application portal, if you've never been in before, you'll create an account, you'll put in all your details, and then you'll get started on completing your application. So this is the main application page. So there's quite a lot on this. I'm not going to talk through everything here, but I'm just going to pick out a few key points. So there's a very helpful guide on how to complete your application. So that layers over atop of what we're talking about today as well, but it does cover lots of different things. You can review and print your application at the end. And a key thing about this process, you don't have to sit down and complete it in one. You can save each section and come back at a later time. Okay, so you can complete one section, go away, do something, or you can start a process and you think, I need to go find that out first. You can pause, you can save it, and then you can come back to it. So you don't have to sit and complete this at end to end. You can go and come back at any time. So you can review and print your application if required. The key information is here. We have 8 sections potentially for you to complete. And as you can see from this graphic here, when you have completed a section and you've ticked a box at the bottom to say it's complete, it will go green. So in this instance, you can see the funding section of the application portal is green. That's been ticked and submitted. The utilization of funding section on this graphic has been started and not completed, and that's why it's orange. So that's not been ticked at the bottom, that's not been completed. And as you can see from the other sections, they have not been started yet. So that's a quick guide to help you visualize how complete is my application for this process. And below that, we'll ask you to submit your video link and your video link password, which we'll talk about in a second, what that actually means. So our finance manager, Andy Palmer, very kindly put together some helpful slides to help people understand when it comes to the application process, how to submit great financials. Okay. One of the questions we get asked a lot is, what are the judges looking for when it comes to the completion of the sales numbers, the growth trajectory, and the assumptions behind it. So these are just a couple of examples to help you think about what's the best way to lay out the details for the judges to read, consume, and understand your business model clearly. Okay. So first of all, please ensure you select the correct trading or pre-trading for your business. We talked about that earlier. It's right at the start of the application process. Make sure you select the correct box because it does affect how the application form flows out. We want you to submit ambitious but achievable sales, profit, and job predictions. Okay, hockey stick numbers are great, but if they're not achievable, then you don't want to lose credibility in your numbers. You want it to be achievable. And it's achievable and credible because you're backing it up with great assumptions. So when you back up your projections with credible and easy to follow assumptions, there's a free text box and you might put in your numbers for the 3 years of your sales and growth. And then there's a free text box, you might break that down in this example here. So you might explain your B2B channel. Year 1, you're going to have X amount of customers. Year 2, you're going to have X. You're going to explain how many units per customer you're going to sell, the average unit price, your total revenue, and your gross margin. That's a quick, easy way to break down the sales that you're projecting. Where is it going to come from and what are the assumptions behind it? And then you'll put some narrative in writing below that as well on where do you get these numbers from. So why do you think you're going to get 300 customers in year 1? What discovery have you done? What validation have you got of those numbers? But that's a quick visual to let the judges see, okay, they say they're going to do 12K in year 1. Where is it coming from? Right, 5 customers, 300 units, average price. Okay, nice and simple example. You can do this any way you like. Okay, you don't have to do it this way, but when it comes to your financials, make it clear, make it easy to understand. The judges need to be able to consume this and understand your business model. Because if it's vague or if it's unclear, it's very difficult for them to create a clear picture of why your business needs funding. There's also a section for costs, so don't forget to break down your costs and zoom out on your costs. A lot of people miss out a lot of fundamentals in their costs. Now, you don't have to list it verbatim because every section's got a word count. Okay, you'll be limited in how much you can put in, and it's got a word count for a specific reason. These judges are reviewing multiple applications. Okay, so they have to be able to read, consume, and understand your business to make an informed decision. So each section's got a word count, but we've learned over the years the word count has been tried and tested, and we've given you enough word count that you can paint a clear and compelling picture for every section of the application. In the costs, very similar to the sales projections, break down your costs. What do you envisage? What are you planning over the next 3 years of growth? Where your costs are going to come from? So it can be marketing, it can be salaries, it can be something completely different, it can be, subscriptions, whatever that is. But break down your cost and and explain your net profit or loss. Okay. Loss making is okay as long as you get a plan to fund those losses. So are you getting additional investment? Are you getting some grant funding? Are you applying for, Smart Scotland? Where is additional funding coming from? You can back up these numbers with some narrative as to where they come from and why they're credible. Some last things on your figures. You might want to put in a narrative to explain your numbers. For example, customer growth picks up monthly as we progress through year 2. Okay. You may well put something like average selling price will be reduced to allow us to gain volume. That's some wording narrative that you might want to put under the figures to explain a little bit of context as to why the numbers show what they do. So your B2B margins lower as bulk volume delivers more. Your online gross margin lower despite increased selling price, also includes other things. So these are just some examples of some written narrative you can put to explain your numbers. So final few points. So the business must estimate their turnover, net profit and job creation over 3 years. Once you get through the first stage of the main edge category and the social edge category, you will be asked for a cash flow forecast. Because if you're applying for an award that has a loan, you will be asked to submit a cash flow forecast before the semi-final or final stage for the social edge. And there'll be a financial review done on your business as it stands and its ability to service a loan. Okay. The cash flow forecast will not be required if you're applying to Young Edge or Wildcard Edge, because that's grant only. You will only be asked for a cash flow if you get to semi-final of Main Edge or the final of Social Edge. All awards are paid in 2 tranches, and they are paid on evidence of expense against the agreed milestones in your contract. So when you win an Edge award, you will sit with one of the relationship managers and you will agree what the money can be allocated towards. Okay. That'll be agreed, that'll be put in a written contract that you will sign, and the funds can only be used for those purposes to grow your business. If you find that when you start your business and you get your Edge award, that something changes and you have to allocate funds elsewhere, don't allocate funds elsewhere until you speak to the relationship managers and explain why you have to change the contract. If there's a material change that you have to make, that has to be done before you allocate funds to other places. One big thing to bear in mind, Scottish Edge funding cannot be used to pay existing directors or founders. It can be used to recruit staff, but it cannot be used to pay existing staff. This is growth funding we're putting in. So this is funding going in to grow your business. And the funding cannot be used to pay existing debts or directors' loans. Okay, we're pretty open. Apart from that, what can you showcase as your milestones is what you want to spend the money on, and how is that going to grow your business? So we'll give you a little bit on what you can and can't spend the funding on. I saw 2 applications last round where they were applying for 100K and 50K was paying the founder for the first year. That was not accepted. That's not in the rules, it's not in the eligibility, and the application was rejected. Don't fall into that trap. Be very clear on what you can allocate the funds towards. And as I said, we're pretty open with it. You can pretty much do what you want with it as long as you can show you can grow, but you can't pay yourself, you can't pay directors, you can't pay existing loans. So just please bear that in mind. So application form we've talked about. Now we're going to quickly talk about the 3-minute pitch video. Now we've got good examples of videos on our website, so you can look at those if you've never done a pitch video before. What we're looking for here. We are looking for you to talk about your business proposition over a 3-minute period. And lots of people, they'll call me up and say, my business is huge, I can't talk about it in 3 minutes. But everybody can. If you work at it, you can. In 3 minutes, you can probably get out about 450 words. And that's probably the speed I am speaking that at the moment. Okay? So if you can kind of document what you want to say in 450 words over 3 minutes, you should be able to give the headlines of your business. The video is not the full business story. The video are the headlines of your business to get the judge clear on what you're pitching so that they can then dive into the detail in your application. So when we give these out to judges, we ask them to watch the video, read the application in that order. So the video is a showcase overview of the key headings. Then they'll get deep dive into the application, and that's where the discussions and questions will come from. Now, what I've put on screen for you here is a kind of flow of types of information that judges are looking for. You can use any structure or format you want, but this is one that's been kind of tried and tested over the years. And I've judged for Edge before I became an employee, and this makes sense to me. So if I'm watching a video for the first time and it's got a great introduction, the problem's clearly explained, the solution's clearly explained, the market size is explained, competition, risk, team, traction, and there's an ask at the end. If that is all depicted over 3 minutes, I've got a really good opening vision in my mind as to what I'm going to be reading in this application. You're never going to get everything in your application into a 3-minute video. Okay? It's just a snapshot overview. What do you want to explain to the judges what they're getting into here? Here are the headlines. But these are the kind of key things they want to hear up front so they can start to visualize what they're actually going to get into in your application. Now, this is all on our website again. It's in our competition brochure. And if you go and watch some of the videos, you will clearly hear the videos and the entrepreneurs pitching in this kind of flow of some kind. These are the key elements the judges need to hear in your video, and they want to get a bit of a picture of what is it I'm getting into in this application. Okay? As I said, you can use any format you want, but these are the kind of headlines that work for judges when they're consuming information. When it comes to assessment criteria, every application at every stage is judged on the same assessment criteria. It's the 6 key criteria on screen, and it's no surprise that that is the 6 boxes on the application portal. So there's no hidden agenda here. If you answer the questions on value proposition, answer clear questions on team, impact, customer focus, growth, and use of funding, that's information that judges are looking for. So the assessors are all Scottish business ecosystem experts. They've got years of experience. The assessors are given the application form and video to review, and every assessor signs a confidentiality agreement before taking part in judging. We've done that from day one, and it's a fundamental part of what we do to protect your IP, to protect your idea, so that nothing in your application can be shared externally and there's no potentially any breaches of confidentiality. We're very strict on that. Any judge who may refuse or doesn't want to or fails to sign a confidentiality agreement does not get to judge for us. This is a legally binding contract between us and the judges, and it's been designed by our partners in Harper McLeod. So rest assured, when you submit an application, it's treated with strict confidentiality through the Edge systems and through our judging process also. So a little bit more detail here. Again, this is in the recording, but it's also on our website. What are the judges looking for in value proposition? They want to read, is the product or service clearly articulated? Is there good awareness of competition? Is there a clear point of difference and any key risks understood? Team, doesn't the business leader or team have the skills and experience to drive the business forward? And so on and so forth. I'm not going to read them through verbatim. It is on our website, but we show you what the judges are looking for in your application. If you can answer these in your own narrative and paint your own picture, that's the information they're looking for to help them make an informed decision. So, top tips from us and the team over the years. Time is your biggest challenge, and I'll explain why. If you're applying to Scottish Edge, you're probably an entrepreneur, you're probably quite entrepreneurial, you're doing a million things, your brain is all over the place, and nine times out of 10, you'll leave everything to the last minute. Please don't leave it to the last minute, because so many times I get people contacting me on closing day. They'll contact me at 9 a.m. in the morning and they'll say, I've got a problem with my computer, my laptop's crashed, I can't complete my application, I'm having issues, tech issues, or, something's happened. So time is going to be your biggest challenge here. So if you haven't looked at the portal after this workshop, get into the portal, start scoping this out. How much time is this going to take you? How much time do you need to give this to submit a quality application? So please, if you want to take a screenshot of anything, it's this. The clock is ticking and it ticks really fast. So I can clearly see on our system when applications are started and when applications are submitted. And that sometimes tends to reflect the quality of application as well. So this is quite a long process. Give it the time it deserves. Research, go into the portal, understand how much time you have to give to this, and plan that time accordingly. I always say to people, if the deadline is the 10th of September, submit no later than the 9th. It gives you a day's breathing space for any tech issues or anything that comes up, or submit whenever you want. We've already got applications received. People have gone in, they've completed everything, they've submitted their application, and that's okay. You can submit any time between now and the 10th, but I would definitely say if you're thinking about starting an application on the morning of the 10th of September, I wouldn't start it. It's not going to happen. You're not going to get done in time. So please be aware of time when you're completing this process. So submitting a great application, some of our top tips. Make it easy for the assessors to understand your business and don't leave them with unanswered questions. Write it as clearly and concisely as possible. And when you're finished writing, give it to someone else to read who doesn't really know your business. And is it clear to them? Know the assessment criteria, so it's in the application. Know what the judges are looking for, keep that in mind. Outline your point of difference, what makes you unique, and show strong competitor analysis. So you understand your point of difference because you know your competitors and you've done that analysis and you've documented that. Be realistic with financial forecasting and explain how you'll achieve this. And there is guidance on submitting clear numbers in our brochure. Tell us about your real customer engagement, not just stats on your sector. I still see applications that say, a study has shown that 50% of this group have this problem. That's a stat, but how many customers have you spoken to? What customer engagement have you done? How many focus groups have you done? What information have you personally gathered directly from the customer group or segment who you feel has this problem, who you feel you can solve this for? So don't just rely on stats. What will you spend the funding on? So simplify your spend breakdown and explain why this will take the business forward. So if you win £100,000 and you want to spend 50k on X, why is that important at this time? How is it going to drive the business forward? Consider your impact intentions. So an impact section, take your time over that. It is a scoreable section. Make sure you give that some time to put in something that's it's readable, it's consumable, and it's realistic. When it comes to the impact intentions, you might read the application and think, I am far too early for lots of this, and that's okay. We don't expect you, as Stacey said, we don't expect you to have a full carbon assessment when it comes to applying to Scottish Edge. But we want you to get to think about, even at early stages of your business, you're thinking about building into the foundations of what you do and what you're creating. How does this business model impact in the future? So we're not expecting, tried and tested, robust plans at this stage, but you're thinking about it and you're building it into, you're baking it into effectively the foundations of your business to think about how this business is going to impact society, the environment, everything else in the future. You can print or download a copy if you want to keep a copy. As I said, you can pause, save, and go back in any time as well. Please double check your form before you submit it, and do not leave any sections blank. It's virtually impossible to leave it blank because you have to tick it at the bottom, but don't leave any sections blank. They are there for a reason. Even if you've only got one line to put in them, use every section of the application. And there's some additional support available for applicants with neurodivergent or neuroverse conditions. I'll talk a little bit about that in a second. So top tips for your video. The panel want to see passionate, believable entrepreneur. They want to hear your story. They want to hear it from you. They want to believe that you can deliver on this, and that's what they want to hear from that video. Showcase your product or service. So make it clear to the judges what it is, and don't have them at the end of 3 minutes asking, "What? I don't understand what this is." Make it very, very clear. You can involve your team or possibly your customers if you've got any. Feel free if you want to incorporate them into the video somehow. That just adds a little bit of credibility. Sometimes, if you want to, it doesn't need to be Hollywood quality. You can record this on your phone, on your desk, tell your story for 3 minutes. You don't have to, pay a production company to put this together. This is about the judges, seeing the founder, and it's important they see the founder, so you're not sat behind a slide deck. Judges don't like watching slides for 3 minutes and hearing a voice and they don't see a face. They want to see the founder. They want to see, why you're passionate about this, and they want to engage and connect. So be natural and be engaging. You can use notes and an auto cue if you like. Whatever makes you comfortable is absolutely fine, but just tell your story. The judges want to hear it from you. So your application form and video make up your combined submission. So as I said, right from the very start, both elements are used to make the decisions. When you're submitting your video, our preferred method is YouTube. But when you're doing that, please make sure it's unlisted, so it can only be reviewed via the link that you supply. There's a guide on how to use the unlisted function on our website and in our competition brochure as well. Give yourself plenty of time for uploading. Sometimes, if you leave that to the last minute, that can be one of the causes why it puts pressure on you on the closing day because you're struggling to get your video uploaded. Upload it as soon as it's ready. And please make sure you watch your video back before you submit it. This sounds really basic, but we have had instances in the past where we had an applicant who clearly submitted very last minute and filmed on their phone a 3-minute pitch video walking down the high street in Aberdeen. And the judges couldn't hear a word the entrepreneur was saying because of the wind and the traffic. So take time, plan your video, quiet room, good, make sure that the microphone picks it up clearly. Watch your video back. Is it telling the story the way you want it told before you submit it? Securing Scottish Edge is more than just the money. All applicants receive feedback at every stage, as we talked about. Over 50% of our winners win on the second, third, or fourth time of applying. So it is a tough competition, but lots of them do win in the first time. Winners get a support package from Harper McLeod, Johnson Carmichael, and a whole raft of different support partners that we've got. That can be wraparound support in kind, or it can be discounts on services. All winners get to join the Edge alumni network of over 700 companies, and dedicated Edge relationship managers are available if required for your business to help you get moving with your business going forward and to connect you into the wider network. So we do have a lot of additional support. The QR code on screen will take you to our website, and it will just give you the information that we've talked about today. And there's Edgeworth is also on the website. If you want to ask them any questions after this, please feel free. And if you have any further questions, it's info@scottishedge.com. So we worked with Elevator last year, who very kindly put together some content for us and explaining why there is some additional help available for neurodiverse applicants. So this content was taken from Elevator's slide deck, so they very kindly agreed for us to share. So Business Gateway have a legal duty to help you access their service due to disabilities with reasonable adjustments, okay? And you do not need an official diagnosis. So Business Gateway are a great support. If you need some additional help to complete your application, contact your local Business Gateway office, and they'll put you in touch with someone who can help you complete the application if you feel you need some additional support. If you do have an official NHS diagnosis of a neurodiverse condition, then you can check if Access to Work could help you with a budget for a personal assistant. So there's more information if you just go to Access to Work. You can find out more information about that if you feel as if you've got an NHS diagnosed condition and you would like to research, can you get some additional financial support to help you complete this application? And obviously, family and friends can help your application also. We're fine with that, but it has to be written by you. It has to be your story. And be cautious of family and friends' feedback. They'll tell you what you want to hear. So I always say, give your application to someone who doesn't know your business, and they'll give you some critical observations on what you're submitting. So you can contact your Business Gateway advisors online. Contact the office, explain that you want to make a Scottish Edge application, but you need some additional support, and they will guide you through what that looks like and what they can do for you. If you do need to do this, please do it as soon as possible, because we are only now 2 weeks away from closing for applications. Please be aware that your advisor cannot do the application for you. The information has to come from you. This is your business story, and it has to come from you. You can use AI tools if it helps you formulate, to structure, to plan, to organize. That is okay. Okay, so you can use different tools, ChatGPT for summarizing, spell checking, or research. Goblin, split larger tasks into smaller ones to make it, a little bit more, chunk it up and make it a little bit more achievable. Mindgraph for recording, transcribing, and summarizing workshops. AI tools are fine, but please make sure you explain the thinking behind what you say in your application. So if you're going to use these tools, you write it in your own words, and it helps you explain what you're trying to convey in your application. If you're using AI, quick reminder, switch off tracking to ensure your confidential info is kept private and not used to train the AI. The judges want to hear your words though, so AI can be brilliant to help you research and edit, but the final submission has to be your words. And you'll be expected to explain all parts of the business plan, so don't use something you don't understand just because it sounds good. AI told me to write this, so I put it in my application. You get a question on it, you might not understand it. Write it in your words. It's coming from you. It's your story. So examples of reasonable accommodations that we can put in place. You can have help from a friend or supporter to fill in the forms. That's okay. If you need some extra thinking time during your pitch presentation when you're pitching live, we can accommodate that if you speak to us in advance. We tell all our judges anyway to only ask one question at a time with clear and literal language. Nice and simple, clear questions, one at a time. You can have someone who can support you at the pitch, whether that's in a Zoom room or at the physical space. You're more than welcome to bring someone along for support. You can request a first or last slot during the day, but again, planning these slots is really, really tricky. There's no guarantee you'll be able to do it, but if you feel as if a first or last slot in your pitching day would help, you can request it and we'll do our best to make that happen. If you go to the website and YouTube channel, previous events show you what pitching live on stage at Goulburn looks like. So if you want to research what does that kind of live environment look like, there's lots and lots of videos showing you previous pitches, and I believe there's videos on there as well from the online pitching as well. In fact, that won't be there because that's confidential. Certainly there's videos on there for the live pitching event at Goulburn, so you get to see the setup. You'll understand what happens when you start pitching, how the judges ask questions, so on and so forth. You'll also get to see what people wear, so it helps you visualize what is a day going to look and feel like just by watching this video. It gives you a sense of that to help clarify in your mind what you are potentially moving into. We will do our best to accommodate anything we can. However, there's some key things we can't do. So we can't write your application for you, and no one else can write your application for you. This is your story. We cannot skip any part of the application process. So it's a video and application, and then it's each stage of the assessment. That's to make it fair and transparent for everyone. We can't guarantee everything you ask will be possible. We are a small team. We're a fast-moving competition. We will do our best. One of the key things we can't do is extend deadlines. Deadlines are hard and fast. Dates are hard and fast. So, to get 250 people through an application process and get winners in a 15-week window is no mean feat. So we cannot extend deadlines. The deadlines are there and they cannot be changed. So please plan your time accordingly. So just finally from us, question time. I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to bring in Jack. And first of all, I'm going to ask Jack, how have we got on with the Q&A in the Zoom room?
Yeah, it's been a busy little chat room in there. My fingers have got calluses now, I think. Bit of a busy little time. I think we got through most of them. I think we covered off most stuff. There's a couple of things I've taken note of just to go into a bit more detail if we can. But if there's anyone that I didn't answer, I think I got most. But if there's anything that I didn't get to and you want to turn on your mic and ask that question just after this little bit, that would be fine. But so one just to start off, with Kirsten. She asked for a company who was trading as a sole trader and then moved to a limited company. Do the trading years run from the date that the limited company started, or is it from the sole trader years?
Okay, that's a little bit complicated because it depends on how much trading or when you started trading on the dates. What I'd suggest is it Kirsten?
Yes.
What I'd suggest to Kirsten is drop a note into the info mailbox and I can set up a quick call and I can have a look at the dates on that, what your sole trader status was like when you moved across, and we'll look at that in a little bit more detail for you just to give you some guidance.
Perfect, thank you. So this is one perhaps I don't know for yourself or Stacey maybe. So Laura was asking for a business where circularity comes through composting, foam-free mechanics, reusable packaging, and local growing. What kind of evidence or metrics are best for the application?
So, will I take this one?
Stacey, I'll give that one to you for now,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I went through the questions and there were a few that I felt as if I had quite similar answers to. So I might be able to kind of go through a few of them. I think it was just a bit more clarity around that 200-word question on the circular economy was kind of coming through to me as maybe haven't covered that too well in the presentation.
Yeah.
But yeah, so just to kind of mention here the questions I'm going to try and cover. There was one on the 200 words isn't very long on to kind of cover circularity, which I think is quite similar to the example that you've just gave there, floristry. And then there was also one about software as a service. So I think for us, yeah, I totally agree. 200 words isn't very long to be able to, answer that circular economy question. We're not looking for, very detailed evidence or anything. When I was sharing those examples of the different circular economy strategies, it's that kind of light bulb moment of, yes, we do that within our business. And there's so many businesses who do adopt circular economy principles without maybe realising it. And that's what we're kind of looking for you to just explain to us and use that 200 words to say. So within your business, and with the floristry example, like you used some examples there of how that's relevant, just explain that to us in that 200 words. It's just a sort of 200 words giving you the opportunity to let us know how you see circularity within your business. And when we're saying about evidence, if you have evidence available, then share it with us because it's great to kind of back that up. But if it is sort of early idea stage, we understand that with all kind of innovation in business, it starts from somewhere. And I think I felt as if Kevin covered a lot of that and the kind of later side of the presentation. So hopefully that answers it. I don't know if you feel.
Yeah, I was just going to add to it, Stacey. What you have to bear in mind is these judges are consuming over 1,000 words per application. So 200 words doesn't sound like a lot, but write it as clear and concise as you can in that window because every box has got a word count for a reason. Because if we left them open, some people write reams and reams of information, and the more space you've got, the more you'll fill. So this is about condensing down the key information that you want the judges to read on your circular economy business model in your future, rather than giving you 500 word space, because humans are humans, and if you give 500 words, they'll tend to fill it. When in actual fact, you might maybe able to say it in two. So bear in mind that judges are consuming a lot of information across a lot of applications. So this is about the art of clear, concise, and precise writing also. Jack, you're on mute, Jack. Sorry, there you go.
Sorry, yep. Okay, thanks, Stacey. That was great. Thanks, Kev, also. So I think there was a little bit of looking a bit for a bit more clarity around the 50% ownership must reside, or sorry, 50% of founders must reside in Scotland,
Yeah.
versus ownership, and how set in stone is that? I think so. For example, there's a business that their assets are here, the business headquarters here, but the founders don't live in Scotland sort of full time. So how does that impact them in terms of applying?
Not eligible, I'm afraid.
Yeah, that's
So
what
the
I'd say.
founder has to reside in Scotland.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I said. But I mean, if there's more that you want to follow up with us on that, please feel free to drop an email and we can look at it in more detail. And I think Jason was curious about the cap on the 50k raised. I think they're pretty much at that limit just now, or they're just reaching there. Are they still okay applying? Did they just sort of reaching that, or is it the fact they've reached that now mean that they're ineligible?
Is that the 500,000 investment
Yes.
question, Jack?
Sorry,
Yeah. So if you have raised over 250,000, up to 500, but it's less than five, you can apply. But if you're awarded a main edge, you'll be awarded the loan only, so you won't get the grant element. So please bear that in mind. That wasn't in the slides. I'll need to add that in. So if you've raised over 250, but less than 500, you'd only be eligible for the loan element of the award. You'd also get this wraparound support, Edge Alumni Network, and everything else that goes with it. But please bear that in mind. But if you're below the 500 equity investment, you are eligible to apply.
Okay, thank you. And Jason, if there's anything that I didn't catch in your question, just feel free to add to what we were talking about there. And Sophie was asking if you're successful, how long do you have to spend the money? Is there a sort of a cap or time limit on how quickly you can, or when you have to have the money spent by?
No, not necessarily. Our contract states 12 months. We'd like you to kind of invest the money in 12 months and accelerate your business forward. But there's no hard and fast on a timeline to spend the money because, as I said in the presentation, businesses change on a dime. It changes from day to day. So you might need to spend it faster, you might need to spend it slower. That's okay. We can work with our winners and extend that timeline.
Good, thank you. I think Joshua has his hand raised.
Hi guys.
Hi, Joshua.
Yeah, hi. I just have a question about the Social Edge one. In regards to the assessors, are they kind of social edge leaning, or is it just a general business and they're really, really only focused on the financial sustainability and not the mission that they're trying to achieve?
I'm reading through the four names in my head because I've already been recruited. Three of them are social based and one is business based.
Cool. Yeah.
So we've worked really hard to make sure, because I know what you're thinking,
Yeah.
understanding a social enterprise model can be really difficult,
Mm.
really different from, someone who's just, business profit based. So we've got a good balance of judges in there.
Cool. Thank you for letting me know. Cheers.
Jack, any other
Thanks.
questions in the Q&A?
Yeah, I think Chinanya was asking, is it possible to apply for the grant only and not the loan in the main categories?
No, I'm afraid not. And if you come for main edge, if you apply for the main edge and you're successful, you will be awarded a grant and loan. It's part of the package. If you only need a grant and you're eligible for young or wild, then it'd be a smaller award if you want to apply for that.
Okay, thank you. There's one there from Mark came in, but I think we need to get in a bit more detail on that. It's more a specific case. So I think Mark, if you drop us a little email into the info box, or myself or Kev, we can follow up with you to talk about that, specifically, because I think there's quite a lot to go into there. Lee is asking, does a Kickstarter still count as as a pre-trading? Excuse me, as pre-trading, and is it possible to find out the dates for the wildcard semi-final?
So first of all, there is no wildcard semi-final.
Oh, so of course.
There is a first stage assessment straight to wildcard final. Kickstarter, that's fine. Kickstarter is not treated as trading. Okay, that's a pre-trading. We consider that pre-trading. Okay, you're not actually generating. It depends on the type of Kickstarter if it's product based, but and the short answer is if you're going through a Kickstarter, we don't consider that as trading.
Okay, thank you. I think Williams has got a visa question there, but I think visas they're quite complex and on a case by case basis. So again, Williams, if you could drop us an email, we've got someone in the team who's a bit more specialist about visas, and we can look at that for you. So if you would drop us a little email, Williams, we can follow up with you. Jason, just following up on the 500k. Therefore, my understanding of the response is for the Future Edge 150k max only makes us available for a total of 100k loan. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. The
Yeah.
70% of the 150, if you're applying for the 150, you would be eligible for the 70% of the loan. Sorry, 7% of the award. So that'd be about 100, what's the exact figure? 100k loan funding. Yeah, but not the grant.
Okay, and Laura asking for in a sector like forestry, where competition is mostly traditional florists and supermarkets, how much detail are judges expecting in the competitor analysis? Is it enough to highlight differentiation, or do they want market share data too?
Um, Differentiation is a key thing here. So if you're a florist and you're proposing that you need edge money to do something unique, different to grow and scale, what is it about your business, about your culture, about what you deliver to customers? Why is it different? Why would people come to you, and why would people pay money for you over the next florist to grow and you can explain how you're going to grow your business from that.
Okay, thank you. And are social enterprises eligible for a wildcard?
Yes. So if you only need a £10,000 grant or a top £15,000 grant, social enterprises, if it's pre-trading, is eligible for wildcard.
Okay, so Laura's asking for early stage businesses, what counts most? Is it strong customer validation, sales revenue to date, social media engagement, or things like workshops, waiting lists, and pre-orders? Essentially, what's good, for an early stage business in terms of impressing the panel, essentially.
I missed the start of that, Jack. It cut out a wee bit. Could you read that
Oh,
again,
yeah,
please?
sorry. So for early stage businesses, what counts most as strong customer validation? Sales revenue to date, social media engagement, or things like workshop waiting lists and pre-orders?
Sales is the number one. Customer validation. If you've got sales, you've already got people buying from you. That is the number one. But customer validation is important across all levels. So, workshop waiting lists is fine. You've got some engagement there, but you need to be able to explain what you've put down there and why is that actually validating a potential business in the future. So you need to be very clear in explaining what you've done, who you've spoken to, but speaking to the old customers, getting you'll make an assumption that you've got a solution, you've got a way forward, but until you actually speak to your customer segments and understand what their pain point is from their point of view, that could pivot your business, that could change your solution. So real face-to-face customer engagement, whether that's in groups, whether that's in surveys, whatever that may be, but the best form of validation is sales.
Thank you. And just a follow up to that, is there anything in the 3 minute video that you wish people would do that they often don't? Or like,
Oh, that's a great question. I've never been asked that one before. That they often don't. Yeah, they often don't watch it back. It sounds really simple, but they don't watch it back and they don't give it to someone doesn't know their business and doesn't know them and watch that. Do you understand what that means? So that would be my ask.
Perfect. If you have two founders, does the same founder have to do the video pitch, the video pitch and both semi-final and final pitch? So does it have to be the same person all the way through, essentially?
Oh, that's fine. If you've got co-founders, you can decide what your strength is and you can decide who's going to pitch, who's going to answer Q&A, who's going to come to a final. It's entirely up to you.
Perfect, thank you. So that's the last of the chat ones. If anyone wants to turn on a mic and ask anything, you're welcome to do so. Otherwise,
Hi, I have a question.
Yes, Sandra.
So we are a business with technology and products at TRL 6, and I was thinking of applying to the wildcard and then use the 15K to go towards TRL 7. Is that still allowed? Because you mentioned pre-revenue and proof of concept IDs for this wildcard.
Absolutely. That's exactly what the wildcard is there for. It's a great example. The hope is for a young and a wild winner is it'll come back in future for the main edge. So you can secure a young or a wild grant and you can build, measure, learn. You can go and develop an MVP, move your TRL forward, come back in future for the main edge award.
Yeah, and because we also apply to another grant, and let's say we get results next month, but of course after the submission date for this grant. Is it possible if our concept and idea and technology is selected and we have won the other one to kind of like still change our kind of like financial projections and sorry, the what we're going to use the money for? Maybe
Yes,
change.
indeed. As I said, you could submit your application today and your business changes tomorrow.
Okay,
Or you
yeah.
submit it on a deadline of the 10th and your business changes on the 11th. That's absolutely fine. A lot will happen between now and you actually getting the money in your bank. So yeah, you can have a discussion with the relationship managers and what you want to allocate the funds towards.
Thank you.
Yep, so I just did one in different from Shiva. I think just I got a query on the comment about sales being, a key indicator of, what a good business looks like essentially. And they're just saying more from a charity perspective. I think just what they're saying is social purpose essentially taken into consideration as if you maybe can't put a monetary value on just how much how it's going to sort of measure up essentially against businesses that are just doing it for profit as against compared to a charity that's maybe got
I think this is probably a wider a one-to-one conversation, Jack, because social purpose is important. Because if you're creating a business, whether it's a social enterprise or profit-generating business, your social purpose should be creating well-paid jobs and stable jobs. So that's one of the kind of social purposes. If the applicant or the person asking the question, sorry, I didn't catch the name, if they want to drop us a note and info, I can more than happy to set up a call and we can dive into that a little bit deeper and I can give a bit of guidance before you submit.
perfect. Thank you. So I don't know if there's anything else or if that's us finished with the Q&A.
Yeah, I just want to apologise for the poor lighting in my room because 5 minutes before I went online, I had a disaster in here. So I feel like I'm sat with a couple of cigarette lighters trying to present. So my apologies for the poor lighting.
Great. Yeah, so
Any other final questions? Thank you, everyone. The website is there, plenty of information there. Any further questions, info@scottishedge.com. Thank you all for joining and good luck.